and Happy New Year. It is 2021 and I think that everyone is cruising into this year with hopes that it will be a lot better than the last one, that we'll see some promising changes. But until then, we can still keep growing. And I know that a lot of people started out growing a vegetable garden or any kind of gardening last year. And we don't really know what it's going to be like this year again, as far as lockdowns and COVID and all of that. But irregardless, I think that all of us should just take what we learned from the garden last year. And even if you're a newbie and you only garden because there was nothing else to do except for spend time in your back garden, keep at it, because there are so many positive aspects of gardening, not just great organic food for you and your family, but mental well-being. Now, I'm in the home garden right now. I'd actually planned to go up to the allotment, but although it's a beautiful day here, it's also very cold. And in Laxey, the roads are really icy and it's probably impossible to get up the hill to get to the allotment right now. So I've been spending a bit of time today tidying the garden, and I will take you through what I've been doing back here just a little bit later on. But first of all, we will probably be moving this month. We don't have a date yet, so I'm going to ring the advocates on Monday. They have all the paperwork. It's pretty much all sorted. They just have to do all the legality bits and bobs. So we will be packing up and heading out to that house, hopefully very soon. But I don't really have the measurements for aspects of the garden, and I'm not quite sure what I'll be doing there this year. So I'm focusing on the allotment garden, and I spent a good afternoon thinking about what I need to do as far as the new garden, how much time that's going to take. And also with the allotment, I want to keep it, but I know that I'm not going to have enough time to do as much there as I have been. And actually, it has been a little bit of a struggle this year as well with doing 1.5 plots. So I've made the decision to just go down to the main plot. I'll be giving up the extra half plot that I took on a good couple of years ago. It's just too much work for one person, especially with a home garden and everything else. So I think that that's going to be the most practical thing to do. So we will be looking at new allotment tiers, and there is a lot of interest this time of the year with people wanting to start gardening and wanting to get an allotment. So I don't think that there'll be any trouble or problems in finding someone to take it on. But I have been thinking about changes for the main plot and making it low maintenance, thinking about things that aren't doing as well or that I don't like as much, and also maybe adding a few new things. So first off, the strawberry bed. I've been growing a couple of types of strawberries there over the years, but I've decided to put in a June-bearing type of strawberry called marshmallow. So I've ordered some bare root plants and they're on their way right now. And I've also decided to only do a very small patch of potatoes this year in the allotment. And I've got some red Duke of Yorks on the way as well. I think this year I'm going to try growing potatoes in containers and grow bags and doing a little bit of a study as to how they did. So last year I grew potatoes in the bags that compost comes in, and they did great. And I think with people having a lot smaller spaces to garden in, growing things in containers is going to be, I think, invaluable to people wanting to start off growing their own. Other things that I'm going to do at the allotment include removing the Jostaberry plant. So I have quite a few soft fruit bushes and canes growing on the plot, and the Josta is getting quite large, and I'm not quite sure that it's the type of berry for me. The flavor isn't really the best. So I'm going to dig that up, and I've already sorted out a new home for it, and I'll be moving a couple of the black currant bushes from my half plot over into that space. And I've also decided that I'm going to be putting in even more perennial vegetables, and the main one is going to be a Taunton Dean kale. And that is going to go on the other side of the 9-star broccoli, which is another type of perennial brassica that puts out quite a few like smallish heads of cauliflower. And this will be the first year that they start producing, and I'm really excited to try that out. Now, perennial vegetables and perennial fruit, they're low maintenance in that you plant them once and they live for years and years and years, sometimes decades. So rhubarb, for example, can live 50 years or more in some cases. And so that means that you don't have to spend all that time every spring sowing seed and starting that plant off again. And with us moving to a larger property that will have a lot of gardening space, if I want to keep the allotment, I need to put things there that can take care of themselves and that won't need as much in the way of sowing and tending, etc. So perennial vegetables are the way to go for me. Hello! Have you decided to say hello to everyone? Little Maggie, she's wearing Louie's collar with the little bell on it, just keeping an eye on her while she's outside. So another really exciting thing that's happening soon is that my book is going to be out in about a month. So that is February 9th if you are in the United States and Canada, and unfortunately if you are in Britain or Europe or Australia or elsewhere in the world, it's going to be a little bit later. And I've heard from a few people that they've received emails from Amazon saying that it's going to be February 23rd or sometimes even the first week of March. And of course, that has to do with COVID related shipping issues. There's not much we can do about it. I hope that I receive my books before those of you in the States, but it could very well be that you have yours before mine. That would be insane, wouldn't it? But it will be out very soon regardless. And I also have a book launch that is currently booked for February 13th at the Minx Museum here on the Isle of Man. And I guess because we're not going to have books for that day, almost 100% guaranteed, that we might have to postpone that date a bit. So I will let you know. Now, enough about the book. Let's go have a look at the home garden. I'll show you what I've been doing to tidy up and prepare it for the move. It's January in the home garden and there isn't that much growing, but that is pretty much deliberate because we're going to be moving hopefully very soon. So I'll go through what I have growing still, including flat leaf parsley. It's pretty hardy, and also being by the house gives it a bit of shelter. There was a stevia growing in here as well, and I potted it up, and it's in the greenhouse as well. And I've spent pretty much 2 or 3 hours today, maybe a little bit longer, just doing some tidy up. So cleaning up the patio and also potting up plants that I want to take with. So all of the herbs pretty much. I think I'll leave this rosemary. It looks pretty happy. And I've got rosemary at the allotment, but I am taking the patio fruit trees and loads of other things. Let's go up the steps and have a look. It's actually quite cold today, quite a lot of frost. And it's amazing that the nasturtiums are still kicking. Oh, there's a little robin over there. Can you see it? It's just sitting on the edge of the raised bed. Let me see if I can zoom in. I can have a little look. Oh yes, see him? Moved just there. Maggie is also here in the back garden. She's got a little bell on, and I have had her on a lead these past few days, but she's pretty much communicated that that's not going to work. And yeah, this looks a little different, doesn't it? So I've decided to take the herb spiral with to the new house, and I deconstructed it a couple of weeks ago actually. And all of the herbs are planted in pots, and they're up there in the greenhouse. We'll go have a look in a second. That is a lot of greenery. So the roses that I've pruned down, you can see that the David Austin roses are no longer on the arbor. So they're all down here, and I'll be taking those plants with as well. Let's go have a look at this, because I just cleaned out this far raised bed, and this is the last of the carrots. Pretty good for what I thought was left. And I'm pretty much convinced after this year of growing the carrots in the pallet container and then growing carrots in the raised bed that that's pretty much the way to go. I do have loads still in the allotments, but having the carrots raised about that much or even more means that the carrot root fly can't get to them. So these are carrots all in really good shape. So you don't really see any carrot root fly damage, and there's very few that are a bit wonky. So there's that one, and there's a couple more like that one there, but they're all pretty straight. So if you are having trouble growing carrots, then consider growing them in a raised bed. It didn't take long to deconstruct the herb spiral, and although it's a really uninspiring patch of no grass, the new owner can turn that into a veggie bed, or they can reseed it with grass when it's a little bit warmer, and not a big deal. They don't really want any of the plants, and especially the plants in the raised beds, but these are purple sprouting broccoli, and they're too well established. And in fact, you can see the very first of the florets forming there. So I'm really reluctant to take these guys out. So they're not going to be able to be transplanted, I don't think. So I'm going to leave them in, and then maybe leave a note explaining what they are and how to harvest them. And then in this bed, I just plonked some cabbages in pretty randomly, as you can see, but I'm going to be digging these guys up and putting them out in the allotment garden. The kale is going to get eaten though, and the rest of the kale I've taken down, and that'll be it for the year. It's really hard moving house and keeping a winter garden as well, or a garden in general. I made a video not too long ago about rules of moving the garden when you're moving house. And I think it's going to be different based on where you live. And it was only, I guess, a couple of weeks ago that we got the final paperwork that we could say what's staying in the garden and what's not. And even though at that point we'd already spoken to the buyer, we could have actually at that time said, no, we want to keep the greenhouse, or we want to keep all the plants. And in fact, in that document, I put that we're keeping the plants. And a lot of them I've pulled up, have potted on, and there's a lot of container grown plants in here as well. And this is one of the benefits of having a greenhouse, is that you can put plants in it to overwinter. And in this zone or climate in Britain, having one of these just keeps all the frost off. You don't have to heat the greenhouse at all. So plants that might not make it outside over the winter have a much better chance of coming through winter and being able to grow again in spring, including the Cape gooseberry. So we propagated some of the cuttings a few videos ago, and those are growing in the porch where it's a lot warmer. But the main plant is in here, and this is the stevia that was growing in the vertical planter, and this is a really sweet herb, and you can use it as a sugar replacement basically. And there's all kinds of things in here. Thyme is a bit hit or miss with surviving our climate, so bringing it inside, keeping it in pots is a good idea. The watercress is actually thriving in the winter time. It's actually doing better than it was in the summer. And all the geraniums are in here. Oh, there's Maggie exploring. Without that bell, I don't know if I would feel comfortable with her being out here. There's birds, and I can keep an ear out for her. She's just having the best time exploring. So cute. I hope that you have had a really good start to this year, and a lot of us are looking forward to the year ahead with a lot of hope and wishing that it will be a bit better than the last year. And I would have to say that this is probably one of the best times of the year for gardening, because we're flipping through seed catalogs, we're thinking about last year's garden and the gardens before that, thinking about what we want to grow, what has done really well in the past, what you want to change, and just dreaming about the summer ahead. So I just want to say, enjoy this time, enjoy planting your garden, and I suspect that it is going to be an amazing growing year. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time here on Lovely Greens. Bye for now. One last thing before you go. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to Lovely Greens and click that little bell icon so that you get notifications for when new videos are out.